In June 2006, an encrypted email reached me with the subject line, "If you're reading this, I'm already gone." The sender, a U.S. Army sergeant, claimed his squad faced something never logged officially. Radios whispering names, lanterns drifting alone, shadows bending wrong. "This is the smoke pit. These are Djinn." Our unit rotated through East Baghdad, tasked with perimeter sweeps and convoy security. Standard gear, M4 carbines, NVGs, PRC-119 radios slung heavy. Nights blurred into checkpoints and dust storms. But in chow tents, soldiers swapped a different kind of intel. Not insurgent sightings, but warnings older than war. The locals whispered a single word: Djinn. Interpreters laughed it off in daylight, but their eyes betrayed unease. They said Baghdad's alleys carried more than echoes of gunfire, that shadows could stalk, speak, or follow soldiers back to base, and those who listened too closely rarely slept again. One sergeant joked, "If a Djinn wants my MREs, he's welcome." Laughter cut through the heat, but it didn't last, because others swore they'd heard voices during patrols, voices calling them by name, though no one else stood within shouting distance. Radios confirmed nothing but static. Radio static was common, but sometimes the static spoke. Not words exactly, more like syllables bent wrong. A corporal swore the net repeated his call sign at 0300 hours. He checked comms discipline, found nothing wrong. The interpreter muttered, "They learn your name first." No one laughed then. Our NVGs added their own layer of doubt. Through green haze, figures sometimes stood in doorways, too still, too long. Blink, and they'd vanish. One gunner fired a warning burst once. Nothing moved after. He was ordered to log it as misidentified civilian movement. He never agreed. Banter filled the void. 4 years in, and still guarding ruins. Another replied, "At least ruins don't shoot back." But the jokes always soured after dusk. Men remembered seeing lantern-like lights drifting between collapsed rooftops, flickering where no generators ran. They swore the lights moved with intent. Patrol briefings emphasized IED hotspots and ambush alleys. Never once did officers mention the other hazard: silence. Entire neighborhoods sometimes hushed mid-stride, stray dogs gone, wind dead. Soldiers said the quiet pressed against their helmets, made rifles feel heavier. The interpreter's advice: when it's that quiet, don't linger. One night, a private found his chem light missing. He taped it under his vest, gone without trace. Later, the same faint glow appeared 10 meters ahead, swaying in midair. He refused to approach. Others dismissed it as trick of vision, but the story spread fast. By section briefings, these tales were laughed off. Sleep deprivation, heat exhaustion, hallucinations. Yet the same anomalies repeated across units. Lights, silence, voices. Patterns formed where coincidence shouldn't. The men knew enough not to push too hard with questions. Orders were to focus on tangible threats. Still, every patrol carried weight beyond gear. We weren't just fighting insurgents, we were walking ground, layered in centuries of belief. Some soldiers carried crosses, others holy verses tucked into helmet bands. Because whether myth or madness, Baghdad nights taught one truth: rifles couldn't kill what whispered unseen. Our squad was posted near a burned-out police station. The concrete walls pocked with bullet scars, and the roof sagging. We rotated guard duty in pairs, each man carrying an M4 with 6 full magazines, NVGs strapped, radios tuned to the platoon net. Around 0200 hours, the air shifted. The heat of the day gave way to a sudden chill, sharp enough that our breath clouded even in Baghdad's summer. Dogs that had been barking earlier went silent. One of the privates muttered, half joking, "Feels like someone just walked over my grave." No one laughed. Silence pressed harder than mortars. I was on the east corner with Corporal Davis when the radio hissed. At first it was ordinary static, the kind we always fought in dense streets. Then it bent into something sharper, syllables that almost formed words. Davis froze. The net repeated my call sign 3 times in a clipped, distorted voice. Alpha 3, Alpha 3, Alpha 3. I checked with the RTO inside the station. He swore no traffic had gone out. We changed frequencies. The interference followed, repeating the call sign as if mocking us. The interpreter whispered, "They learn your name first." My blood ran cold. We thought it was a prank. Someone with a scanner maybe, or insurgents playing with captured radios. Davis tapped the handset and said, "Cut it out." Immediately, the static roared louder, filling the channel like an ocean wave. Then it cut. Out of the corner of my NVGs, I saw a figure across the alley. Too tall, too thin, its outline bending wrong against the shadows. I blinked, and it was gone. Davis swore under his breath and shouldered his rifle. We both knew we couldn't log shadow shapes in a patrol report. Command would call it fatigue. Still, neither of us moved. The smell came next. Copper mixed with smoke. Not like burning trash, but heavier, metallic. The kind of scent you taste in your teeth. It drifted from the stairwell inside the police station. A sergeant went down with a flashlight, but the beam sputtered as though the batteries had died. When he came back up, his face was pale. He only said, "Basement's flooded, can't see a thing." Later, when we checked in daylight, there was no water, only dust and broken furniture. That night, though, the smell stayed. We passed around cigarettes, pretending smoke was the only explanation. At dawn, the lieutenant dismissed it all as nerves and bad gear. Official log read, interference on comms, no contact. Davis and I kept quiet, but word spread fast anyway. Soldiers whispered in the smoke pit that Djinn followed us through alleys, mimicking our radios, testing our names. Some said you never answer when the static calls. Others claimed if you do, the thing will come closer, until you see its eyes. Whether myth or not, none of us volunteered for the east corner post again. And the silence of that street stayed heavier than gunfire for weeks. 2 weeks later, our convoy rolled through the Karada district, narrow streets flanked by shuttered shops and blown-out apartments. We dismounted for a foot patrol, weaving between burned cars and crumbled walls. Standard drill: clear the route, keep comms clean, watch rooftops. Yet the neighborhood felt wrong. Every door was closed, every curtain drawn. The interpreter muttered, "Too quiet." That phrase always meant trouble. As we pushed deeper, the silence thickened until even our boots on broken glass sounded loud. Then ahead, a faint light appeared between collapsed buildings. A lantern glow, steady, moving as though carried by an unseen hand. The lieutenant ordered a halt. Hand raised. We scanned with NVGs, rifles leveled. The glow drifted forward, weaving between piles of rubble. No silhouettes, no shadows attached, just a pale orb floating waist-high. A specialist whispered, "Generator light." But we knew there was no power in that block. The orb stopped 10 meters ahead, swaying slightly. Davis muttered, "It's like it wants us to follow." The lieutenant signaled 2 men forward, but before they moved, the light blinked out. Darkness swallowed the alley again. Radios hissed once, sharp, then cleared. No contact. We advanced, but every man kept his rifle tighter. Later, in the smoke pit, men argued over what we had seen. Some swore it was insurgents using tricks to bait us into an ambush. Others shook their heads. Too clean, too silent, no footsteps, no wires. The interpreter said softly, "They take the form of lanterns. Old stories say they guide men off the path. Follow them and you will not return." No one challenged him. A private broke the tension with a joke about genies granting wishes. Nobody laughed. The silence afterward lasted longer than the story itself, each man thinking about that light moving on its own. Command received the report, but it was stripped of the supernatural. Official log read, "Unknown civilian lantern, alley secured, no enemy contact." That became the pattern. Strange sights written down as mundane, because what officer wanted ghost light in their mission file? Still, the story leaked across squads. Soon, men began refusing to patrol Karada alone. Pairing became standard. Not by orders, but by instinct. Everyone had heard at least one version. A light with no owner, moving like it had intent. None of us said it aloud, but the rule grew clear. Never follow what floats. That alley stayed etched in memory. Not for bullets or IEDs, but for silence and that impossible glow. Some nights, soldiers swore they glimpsed the same lantern from rooftop OPs, drifting between ruins, vanishing when challenged. Whether hallucination, enemy trick, or something older, none could say. But the dread it left was real. Men started carrying charms, crosses, verses folded in helmet bands, small defenses against what rifles couldn't hit. We told ourselves Iraq was full of strange light sources. Still, when darkness fell and the alleys hushed, every man avoided the lantern's path, afraid of where it led. Our next patrol cut through a district once filled with offices, now just hollow shells. Floors collapsed into each other, desks rusting under sun. We searched carefully, rifles raised, radios whispering in our ears. Inside one ruin, the interpreter froze. He motioned silence, hand trembling. Then we heard it too, a woman's voice, Faint, calling for help, clear words in Arabic. Please, over here. It came from deeper inside, where rubble sealed the stairwell. We advanced 3 meters, light steady. The voice repeated, same words, same tone, like a recording, looping. Our radios hissed, then clicked dead. The stairwell stayed dark. The lieutenant ordered us to hold. He scanned the rubble. No way anyone's down there, he muttered. But the voice came again, softer, urgent. Please, over here. This time, it shifted slightly in pitch, rising like someone mocking. The interpreter's face drained. It is not a woman, he whispered. Djinn can sound like anyone. They make you follow. One private almost stepped forward anyway, muttering that maybe someone was trapped. The lieutenant grabbed his vest, pulling him back. The sound stopped instantly, as if cut off mid-breath. Our NVGs showed nothing. Radios cleared. The stairwell smelled faintly of rot and smoke. We pulled back into the street, unsettled. A machine gunner laughed nervously. Guess Baghdad's ghosts want rescuing too. Nobody joined in. Later, in the smoke pit, the story spread. Soldiers argued, maybe a recording device, maybe insurgents luring us in, but every man who'd heard it swore the voice carried no echo, no distortion. It spoke like it stood right beside them, inside the sealed stairwell. The interpreter warned us again. They borrow voices, sometimes voices of people you know. That thought stayed with me, because more than one soldier swore the voice, for a moment, used his name. Command reviewed the report. Official log, possible recording device, no evidence recovered. No mention of a woman's voice, no mention of names, but the men remembered. We avoided that ruin after dusk, convinced the place had marked us. One night, from a rooftop OP, we saw lights flicker from the stairwell, like a lantern burning inside sealed stone. No power ran there, no access, yet the glow pulsed for 10 minutes, then died. The interpreter refused to even look. He muttered verses under his breath, crossing himself and shaking. Do not answer when they call, never. We listened. From then on, the warning became routine. If you hear your name in static, ignore it. If you hear a woman crying in the ruins, ignore it. If a lantern floats ahead, ignore it. Orders never written, but every squad knew them. These were survival rules for what rifles couldn't kill. Some men joked about putting them on laminated cards next to the rules of engagement. Others stopped joking at all, because each time we dismissed a voice or turned away from a glow, nothing happened. But the fear stayed, a fear sharper than bullets, a fear we couldn't fight. Our platoon rotated through a checkpoint on the city's edge, a stretch of concertina wire and sandbag bunkers facing ruined farmland. Nights there were long and empty, broken only by distant small arms fire. One midnight, the motion sensor tripped. The screen showed heat signatures approaching. We scrambled, rifles aimed, NVGs cutting through the dark. But when the figures stepped into sight, they weren't insurgents. They looked like civilians, tall, thin silhouettes in ragged clothing, standing still just beyond the wire. No movement, no sound. The lieutenant ordered a challenge call. Nobody answered. The shapes simply stood and watched. We called it in. HQ responded with a flat, maintained position. The lieutenant shouted in Arabic, demanding they step closer. Nothing. Then, without warning, the silhouettes shifted, not walking, but flickering. One moment they were at the fence line, the next several meters to the left, like frames skipped in a broken video. Our NVGs fuzzed, radios hissed, a private whispered, "They're inside the wire," and we spun, rifles up. Nothing stood behind us, but when we turned back, the figures were gone. Sensors cleared, only dust blowing across the barren ground, no tracks left, no evidence at all. The sergeant forced a laugh. Probably goats messing with the system. Nobody bought it. We'd all seen shapes too tall, too human. Later in the smoke pit, the story twisted. Some said they were spirits of those killed in the fields. Others swore they were Djinn, testing the perimeter. The interpreter only shook his head. They cannot cross wire unless invited, he said. But they watch. From then on, men refused to stand alone at the checkpoint. Every guard detail doubled up, shoulders touching, eyes scanning the night. No one wanted to be the first left to answer. Official report logged it as a false alarm. Sensor malfunction, no enemy contact. That became the script, dismissals that explained nothing but silenced questions. The lieutenant never admitted what we all saw. Still, he quietly changed patrol orders. No man left alone after midnight, pairs only, rotations shorter. Command never asked why, but soldiers knew. Rumors spread, mutating across units. Some claimed the figures whispered names in the dark. Others said they saw eyes glowing faintly like coals, just past the wire. None of it written down, none of it shared outside the pit. Just smoke, silence and fear. Weeks later, another platoon took over the same post. Their first night, the same thing happened. Motion sensors, flickering figures, silence. By dawn, they'd already adopted the same unwritten rule. It didn't matter what reports said, didn't matter what command believed. The soldiers trusted what they'd seen, and every time the desert hushed, every time the wire seemed thinner than it should, we remembered those shapes. Tall, silent, watching, waiting. The war gave us many enemies we could fight, but those figures, they were something else entirely. Something that wanted us to know the wire wasn't protection, only a line. We were sent on a midnight sweep through Sadr City, tasked with clearing alleyways scarred by weeks of firefights. Our boots splashed through stagnant water, rifles tight, NVGs painting every corner in green haze. Radios crackled only with silence. Halfway through, the air shifted. First came the smell, sulfur mixed with rotting fruit, thick enough to sting our throats. Then came the sound, a low hum, like wires vibrating under tension, but no power lines hung above. The interpreter muttered under his breath, repeating verses. The private behind him whispered, "Feels like the streets breathing." Nobody argued, we just pressed on. The hum grew louder, pulsing through concrete like a heartbeat. Our optics blurred, outlines warping at the edges. A shadow slid across a wall ahead, tall, bent backward at the spine, arms too long. I aimed, finger tightening, but Davis hissed, "Don't fire." The lieutenant froze us in place. The shape glided forward, crossing the alley without sound. It didn't turn its head, didn't acknowledge us, but as it passed, every radio in the squad clicked alive. My call sign again, repeated 3 times, in a perfect copy of my voice. Then silence. The interpreter whispered, "They are playing with you." We pushed to the next block, nerves fraying. A machine gunner tried to lighten the mood. "If I disappear, at least tell my wife it wasn't insurgents." No one laughed. The hum returned, this time layered with whispers. Not one voice, but dozens, overlapping. Some in Arabic, some in English. One spoke Davis's name, dragging it long, syllables cracked. Another muttered mine. A third sounded like a sergeant we knew, killed 2 months before. Boots scuffed on empty pavement. Shadows bent wrong against fire-scorched walls. The whispers built until it felt like the whole street leaned close, waiting for us to answer. The lieutenant ordered a fallback, calm but clipped. "Move, now." We peeled back, rifles covering angles, each man feeling eyes pressing from windows that weren't there. Radio spat fragments, broken laughter, static coughs. A private stumbled, swore something grabbed his pack. When we checked, nothing clung to him, but the strap was scorched black. The interpreter refused to walk in the middle anymore, sticking to the rear, murmuring prayers. By the time we reached the extraction point, the hum stopped. The silence that replaced it felt worse. We loaded into Humvees without a word. None of us wanted to break it. The official log was sterile. Patrol complete, no contact. But every man carried the memory of that night. The sulfur stench, the overlapping whispers, the shadow gliding across the wall. In the smoke pit, we agreed on one unspoken truth. Baghdad had enemies we couldn't shoot, couldn't capture, couldn't outmaneuver. Enemies older than war, using the city's ruins as their hunting ground. We never spoke of it outside those circles. But when new soldiers arrived, we gave them quiet warnings. Don't answer voices. Don't follow lights. Don't trust shadows. Because some battles in Baghdad were fought without bullets and never won. Our final weeks in Baghdad blurred together. A cycle of patrols, ambushes, and smoke-filled nights. By then, every squad carried stories, whispers, lanterns, shadows at the wire. The last night I stood watch, the city was unnaturally still. No dogs barked, no call to prayer echoed, just silence. The interpreter sat near me, staring at the horizon. Then, from behind the blast wall came footsteps. Slow, deliberate, boots on gravel. I called a challenge, rifle raised, no answer. The steps stopped. When we checked the ground, there were no prints, just dust shifting as though something unseen had stood there. The radio hissed alive, not static this time, breathing. Shallow, measured in my ear, then a voice whispered, using my mother's name, a name no one here knew. I ripped the handset away, heart pounding. Davis grabbed my shoulder, asking what happened. Before I could answer, the breathing spread. Every headset clicked with the same sound. 12 men hearing the same slow inhale, exhale. The lieutenant ordered headsets off, but even then, some swore they still heard it, like air moving just behind them. The interpreter whispered again, "They know you now." None of us spoke. None of us slept. At dawn, Baghdad returned to life. Markets opened, children walked streets, engines roared. But we walked back to base like hollow shells, every sound reminding us of that night. The logbook showed nothing unusual. Perimeter secure, no contact, just another page in endless reports. But every soldier who stood watch carried the truth. Something had crossed closer than ever before. Not attacking, only reminding us it could. That day, a private packed a Quran into his vest. Another wore a cross under his plate carrier. Each man carried something, because bullets felt like nothing against what breathed our names. Rotation came. We boarded trucks bound for the airfield, leaving behind walls scarred by shrapnel and alleys lit by impossible lanterns. New units arrived, unaware of the rules we'd written in whispers. Never follow lights, never answer voices, never trust silence. The interpreter refused to come with us. He said only, "Baghdad remembers, and those who walk at night remember too." Then he turned away. For him, the war was older, deeper than ours. For us, it ended with duffel bags and orders. But the fear we carried home stayed longer than sand in our boots. Some nights it still spoke. Were we haunted by war, or by the land itself? Maybe by both. In Baghdad, not every enemy carried a rifle. Some waited in ruins, in silence, in shadows that bent wrong against the firelight. We logged nothing, we told no one. But in the smoke pit, we remembered together the rules, the whispers, the breathing. And so the story remains here, with you. This is the smoke pit, and these were the Djinn of Baghdad, soldiers' paranormal encounters in Iraq. Thank you for watching, subscribing, and sharing. May God be with you, wherever you are.